two more ideas. Some of this is not new. There was a very wise economist some years ago, some of you may know him, J.K. Galbraith. He was distinguished by the fact that he was extremely bright, extremely funny. He was an American ambassador to India, and he was 6'7", but he wrote like an angel. One of his books was The Affluent Society. And he drew a distinction, and see if you can see what's happening here. He drew a distinction between needs and wants. This is the beginning of the ascendancy of the short-term shareholder value, this malign form of capitalism, because markets and profits and jobs, they're all good. But it was Galbraith who drew the distinction between needs and wants. Needs generate employment. They provide income, which is so important to human dignity. Wants, he said an interesting thing about wants. What he said about wants tend to be driven by advertising, which has its role, but by emulation. Someone down the road is a 4x4, or a flat in Bulgaria, or whatever, 50 or 60 years. Don't underestimate how important a role it's had in changing Ireland's trajectory. We were a needs-based community. We were a community that looked out for ourselves. That power has been sucked away and centralised. There is a divisive culture now that divides and has eliminated trust. If you were to say, what is the biggest casualty? The biggest casualty of this crisis is trust. We don't trust anymore. We don't trust the banks. We don't trust, dare I say it, the government. And that's not a criticism. It's simply an observation. And in society as a whole, and this is a contentious thing to say, but arguably, when you look at the sometimes inevitable breakdown of all kinds across the country, we don't trust the other person. When we're called to love, there's an erosion of trust, and this is accelerated by a culture that emphasizes wants rather than needs. I'll give you one stunning example of this. A friend of mine, good friend of mine, works in one of the big financial institutions, calls by for a coffee a couple of months ago, and it's a place where the kids get their lunch on the way to school, the stuff, they get the crisps and the packet of whatever they're having. And she said, you look a bit pressurised. I said, it's the times that are in it. And she said, actually, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming 4 or 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And he says, how did you know? And she said, I saw the kids coming into school in the morning. They'd be throwing 20 euros or 10 euros there, 12-year-old kids, and telling me to keep the change. Now, I want you to think about that. Just think about it for a minute. That's the difference between, and that's our legacy. And that's how far we have gone from the values which we inherited. So Galbraith, I think he says lots of things, and he also makes the point that this once was driven by indebtedness. And if you look at what's happening at the moment, the level of indebtedness in households has increased steadily over the last 14, 15, 20 years. The level of household indebtedness has increased steadily. And that's been driven by the one-space culture. Now, coming back to hope and to say there is a third way between capitalism that has turned rogue because of its short-termism and its greed, and between communism that has failed, there is a third way, based on the common good and based on the person. Pope John Paul, a very, very good book when he died, it was published in England, beautiful book of essays. He reaffirmed the existence of an objective moral order, which is exactly what the boys were saying in UCD, people like McIntyre, which is noble through scriptural revelation and natural law. I spent the earlier part of this week with one of my PhD students, a very devout Islamic scholar. He's doing his PhD, a very devout. And boy, could we learn from him. Boy, could we learn from him, because we were talking about the same things. A natural law which men and women must observe to achieve true freedom. Now, read the rest and think about it. Democracy could become totalitarian, and it is then a still more formidable opponent than Marxist communism. John Paul II knew all about both. He knew about Nazism, he knew about communism, and he wrote from experience that when you don't take account of the common good, you don't take account of your neighbour, society ends up in big trouble. We're coming to the end of what I have to say, but I want to put this point to you. People sometimes say, looking at this analysis, I mean, the big picture is this: there's been an erosion of trust, and that erosion of trust has something to do with the malign philosophical model within which we've been operating. But what about leadership? What about leadership? The best study of leadership that I know of was carried out at the Harvard Business School about 10 years ago. They spent 5 years on it. And they came to a definition, a very pithy definition that I'd often ask my students. Would you like to define leadership yourself? How would you define leadership?
Somebody with vision. The leaders have vision regardless of.
Vision, yeah.
Example?
Yes? Well,
Leadership. Follow my example.
Follow my example, leadership, example, vision, service. Okay. Well, the definition encompasses all of those because what they said was this: leadership is humility with fierce resolve. Humility with fierce resolve. All the great leaders I've known have had that. Let me tell you something I wasn't going to say. The last time I was in this room, it was the Irish Hospital Consultants Association, about 6 months or a year or so ago. And she would kill me if I said this, but I came to speak with Sister Kinsela. And she got up there, she spoke, and she blew them away, because this was a leader, 45 years, putting other people in front of herself, with an extraordinary tenacity of faith, and doing extraordinary things, building a capacity to look after those with problems of addiction that dwarfs anything the state has been able to do, and thinking of new things, like, for example, there's a house for women about 30-40 miles down the road in Fernandes. Humility with fierce resolve. That's what it is. But, she didn't look from the air, and neither did the Harvard Business Review. Because if we need a new politics, and if we need the common good as something out there, we need a new vision of what leadership is. And the vision was given to us. And you got to picture this as well, guys. You got to picture this. You got to picture the Last Supper. Easter's just over, but it's a Thursday evening, and Christ is having a meal with his friends, and he knows what's coming down the line. And what does he do? He's dealing with people like you and I with all of our foibles. He chooses that moment to reaffirm a lesson he told them a year previously. He gets down on his knees, puts a towel around them, and he washes their feet. And he said, that's service. That's what I'm calling you to do. Now, if we look at Ireland today, or we look at any other country, where do we see that service, that leadership of service to the person? We see titles, and we see directives, and we see divisions, and we see all this kind of crap. But that's not leadership. That's not leadership. Leadership of service to the person. It is about service. That's what it's about. And that's why that overhead is up there, because that was the defining example.